Business and finance. This week, a focus on Africa. We look at Nigeria and hear directly from the country's new finance minister as it tries to move away from oil and expand the economy. Also, can't afford to pay for gas? Then how about energy for peanuts? Businesses with their backs to the wall look for alternatives in Argentina.
I'm Imtiaz Tayyab in Karachi, where these men are training to be part of Pakistan's booming private security industry.
So with Europe's debt problems not really changing a whole lot at the moment, we've decided to switch focus this week and see what Africa has to offer us. And our case study is Nigeria, a country with economic wealth and potential. It's just a case of bringing them together to make the most of it all. So here's how we'll do it. Coming up, a report on the country's agriculture sector, something which could be so much more than it already is. Also a chat with Nigeria's new finance minister, someone who's already made her name on a global scale. And the numbers on a potential banking crisis in Nigeria, which the government is moving quickly to try to avert. But let's start with Yvonne Ndege, Al Jazeera's West Africa correspondent, and her report on one of the moves to revitalise Nigeria's economy.
It's a labour-intensive job, often done in extreme heat. But cassava, a shrub that grows all over Nigeria, used for food, could help end the country's dependence on oil and lift millions of people out of poverty. The problem is Nigeria is not exploiting the shrub's vast uses. Here, it's being processed into cooking flour. But this is a drop in the ocean of what's possible. Around the world, cassava is processed for products like the biofuel, ethanol, glucose, starch, alcohol and even glue. And it's the same story with most of Nigeria's agricultural goods. Various institutions are trying to help Nigeria exploit what it has agriculturally. And the sector is a key pillar in the government's economic transformation plan.
40-50 years ago, that was our mainstay. All of Nigeria was about agriculture. And the Bank of Industry has assisted, albeit in a very small way.
But infrastructural problems, a chronic lack of electricity and poor access to credit for potential farmers and investors is a massive hindrance.
You will just be hearing on newspaper and media that the government has approved so billion. Then you ask, who are those people that are taking the money? You find out the money is not going directly into the pocket of the poor farmers.
And there's a ticking time bomb. Even though Nigeria has enough fertile land to probably produce food to feed most of Africa, it's one of the world's largest importers of food.
This one is used for animal feed.
Nigeria spent $4.2 billion last year importing agricultural food products it can produce at home, something it can't afford to keep doing. With uncertainty about the future price of oil, a population of 150 million people that keeps growing, experts warn that Nigeria's green revolution must happen now to avert future crises.
And on the subject of averting future crises, that's exactly what Nigeria's government's hoping to do with the banking sector. It's the same type of thing afflicting Europe and the United States, concerns that some banks mightn't have enough cash to avoid another meltdown. And here is where we're seeing some major preemptive moves. It goes back to 2009 when the central bank fired the chief executives of 8 of the country's 24 lenders. It also pumped 620 billion naira or $4 billion into 8 banks and nationalised 3 others, a forced move because those banks just couldn't raise the cash they needed. So they got an additional $4.5 billion as well. So the short story is that Nigeria's central bank is on the lookout for weak spots in the system, trying to shore them up before they become a bigger problem. Now, any problems with Nigeria's wider economy will fall into the hands of one Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the new finance minister, who's also taking on the role of coordinating minister for the economy. Okonjo-Iweala's well respected in financial circles. She's done the job in Nigeria before, also worked for the World Bank, most recently as the group's managing director. Yvonne Ndege began by asking about the need to diversify the economy away from its reliance on oil.
So it's not a blueprint, it's a living document, which we'll be happy to share when we've worked on it a little bit more. But let me say the big challenge in the economy is diversification. Nigeria is an economy where over 70% of government revenues depend on oil, and exports, 90% depend on oil, is oil-based. And we think that, you know, to create jobs, the oil sector is not as job creating as we would want. So for a long time, we should have been working on diversification of this economy. The potential is there. You know, agriculture is a very big sector in which we've been doing relatively well. It's been growing at 7 to 8% per annum, but we could do even better.
We've talked a little bit about the potential that Nigeria has.
I haven't even finished with the potential. Sorry to stop you, Yvonne. Because look, there's some other sectors. Manufacturing, you know, because of the issue of lack of power and fixing our infrastructure, our industry has been hit. Many factories have closed down are working at 1/3 capacity. We spend so much money in this country importing generators, and about $13 billion per year on generators and diesel fuel. You know that individuals have and businesses, you know, have to spend. So if we could improve power, it would save a lot of money and reduce the unit costs. So manufacturing could improve. Entertainment industry, we've got Nollywood, the 3rd largest entertainment or film industry in the world after Hollywood and Bollywood. $250 million a year in terms of value created, 200,000 jobs, direct jobs for our young people, and about 1 million indirect jobs. If we could just support them to improve the quality of what they do through access to finance and through capacity building, that would really help.
Some of what you said is not going to be new to people. People realize this is the potential that Nigeria has. People from all over the world want to do business in Nigeria. I'm constantly asked, Yvonne, what business can I do in Nigeria? What have you seen in the last 2 years that you've been living here? But there seems to be so many obstacles. People say Nigeria is too big. There's too much corruption. There's too much ethnicization and tribalism. Do you, as finance minister, admit that there are huge obstacles?
Of course, I admit there are huge challenges. Some of these challenges may not be the ones you're mentioning. I think, you know, the issue of ethnicism and religion, you know, the challenges are there, but they are not more than some other countries in the world that are moving forward. So I really don't think we should dwell on that. I think that if you're creating an economy in which people have jobs, then they have less time when they're working to think about ethnic group or religion. You know, so we really need to work on that. So it is a challenge. But the biggest challenge, I'm sure that if we solve the infrastructural challenges in this economy, the fact that we are generating maybe 4,500 megawatts in a country of 150 million plus, when South Africa can generate 45,000 in a country of about 45 million people. You know, if we solve that problem, it will take away a lot of the challenges if we solve our road and rail and so on. So we know the challenges. Corruption is a challenge, yes, that is true, but in many other countries also it's a challenge. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't focus on it and try and bring more transparency to the way we manage ourselves and our finances.
Let's talk about job creation. You hear the figures banded about 20 million, 30 million, 45 million people unemployed. How do you create jobs, Minister?
I think we create jobs, Yvonne, by working on those sectors, on this diversification agenda, and on those sectors that are likely to be, that the private sector is likely to invest in, to make the jobs available. It's not government that is going to create jobs. If we take all the sectors I talked to, agriculture, if we can create this enabling environment that we're talking about and work on it in a systematic fashion from production to processing to, you know, if you just process some of our products, transform it before you export it, it creates jobs along the way. And it's the kind of jobs that young people might be interested in, that is not the whole machete type of cultivation. So you take those productive sectors that are the sources of growth and you remove the obstacles, you improve the investment climate by removing the obstacles, you work on the corruption issue, you make it easier for the private sector to come in.
Why should people come and do business in Nigeria, Minister?
Oh, because if you're not in Nigeria, you're not in Africa. It's simple. This is the country with the largest population, the most enterprising people, You know, people, when they come here and see just how hardworking Nigerians are and how many, you know, that's what excites me about the country. That's partly why I've come back. You feel alive here. You know, every day you wake up is an exciting day. You just don't know what's going to happen, who is going to create what, who has what ideas, you know. And we are beginning to have a middle class with some purchasing power. We have a large population, so even those who are near the bottom form a consumer market that is, you know, one of the biggest in the world. And then you have exciting people to work with, so why not? I just want to repeat that. If you're not in Nigeria, you're not in Africa.
And still ahead.